Hello, it's James from Monolith Stoves. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. I've just done an unboxing of the Monolith Junior Pro Series 2.0. In that we went through some things of what you'd expect to find in the box, how to maybe lift some things out, what to be careful with, what not to be surprised about. If there's a little crack in the inside of the ceramic, not a problem. Again, if there is a crack in the ring at the top, which is there for expansion and movement, so don't worry about that. I've set it up, as you can see, it's on the feet. So we've got two at the front and one at the back. That's to stop when the weight of the lid goes up, we want the support to be there at the very back in the middle. That's why that's there. I've already put the ceramic in that forms the firebox and the ring, and matched up the gap in the ring with the access for the pellet door. We've got this cast iron grate, which we need to put in the base there. That's going to hold the charcoal up and allow any ash to fall through. What else do we have? We've got this frame which holds the heat deflector in place. There's some guides in here. You'll be able to see there's three guides that the frame sits into. Make sure there's a nice air gap evenly all the way around, so there's plenty of space for air to move around. The heat deflector goes in the centre too. That sits on the ring. You have the grid as standard, stainless steel grilling grid that fits in there on the support quite nicely. And then if you close the lid, finally, just to finish it off, again we've got that control tower, the Monolith mark on the front, and the Monolith stamped in the top in the cast iron, and that just sits on top of this gasket. There's a felt gasket that runs around the top. That sits on top of there. You push it down firmly, make sure it's nice and secure and in line, and that's it. Beautiful piece of kit, ready to go. Almost. We have with us some accessories that I wanted to show you. All these Monolith Kamados are ready to go straight out of the box. You can grill, you can smoke, you can bake in there already. The deflector creates the indirect heat, which allows you to create a sort of clay oven, and then if you take that deflector out, you get a direct heat similar as you would in a normal charcoal barbecue tandoor type thing. So you get the much more sort of like searing and direct heat that you get the flavour from quite so beautifully. There are three main accessories. There's lots of accessories with Monolith. Monolith is probably the market leader, top of their game within the Kamado world at innovation and bringing new products, new accessories, but also really focusing on making them the best that they can be. The three accessories that I'm really keen on talking about are the grill expander. So if you've got, for instance, it's all very well doing a big shoulder of pork or one joint beef brisket, that type of thing. But if you can do a lot of sausages or a lot of burgers, or you want to add vegetables, or any other items that you might want to keep separate, adding a grill expander really does give you much more space and a lot more flexibility in what you're trying to cook, and especially if you're trying to get everything ready at the same time. So grill expanders, really worth looking at. And also the cast iron. So again, when you've got the direct heat, if you're talking about searing, sort of restaurant quality steaks especially, but also charcoal vegetables, that kind of thing, the cast iron grids are excellent, well worth investing in. And finally, and I'm not going to go and grab it, there's the rotisseries that just sort of take it to another level. The rotisseries aren't the most they can cost quite a lot of money, the rotisseries, but it's a different level of cooking. It enables you to create some incredible flavours, and I've been fortunate enough to cook on a few of them, and I have to say, well worth investing in if you can. Certainly further down the line, if you feel like you've kind of ticked off an awful lot of the boxes already and you want to up your game with your Monolith Kamado, I would definitely recommend the rotisserie if you haven't got one already. Fantastic bits of kit. So what we're going to do now is, because I did sort of say we're going to do an unboxing, we're going to do a bit of a review, but also we're going to do some cooking. So as I say, you've got the grid, you've got the deflector, the heat deflector that creates the indirect heat. Without that, you get direct heat, just a different cooking method. We've got the firebox in there. We've got the lower vents, which is where the air comes in, and that controls the heat. The heat, if you like, it's the sort of it's the main accelerator for if you think of the car, it's the accelerator for how that fire is going to behave and what sort of temperature you're going to get to. A lot of people will work to very low and slow, will just be a sort of fine gap in it, a sort of standard 150-ish kind of thing. You'll be looking at a little finger type sort of gap, and then if you're looking at higher temperatures, you might be looking at a square or even fully open, depending on how much fuel you've got left in, is what you'll react to. So this is your main play, if you like. I've said this is the pellet feeder. Slightly shifted that. That's the pellet feeder. Monolith supply various flavours. Cherry's a great starter point. There's apple as well. Various other flavours, and it's just wood pellets. I don't know if you can sort of, but they're very clean, very easy to use, very easy to handle. But they introduce great smoke flavour during your cook. We've also got down here. There is a little access hole. A rubber bung on it, and what you can do here is you can actually attach a fan to the side of your Kamado, which will then be run by a computer. Now, there probably needs to go into a bit more depth to this, but essentially the computer will have probes into what you're cooking. So say you've got a piece of brisket on there, they'll probe the internal temperature of the meat. You can even probe the ambient temperature within the Kamado. That computer will then tell the fan whether there needs to be more air or less air, so it will manage the temperature for you, if you like. So if, for instance, you wanted to do a low and slow cook or something that's going to go over an awful long time and you've got things to do that day, that means that you can sort of leave it with a lot more confidence than the sort of set and forget method that makes you feel a little bit nervous when you're far away from home. There are different levels of computer, and the top range ones work on Wi-Fi. They'll talk to your phone. You'll be able to check in with it halfway around the countryside with the dog and just check that everything's going to be okay for when you get back for that meal. Anyway, slightly different thing, but again, loads of accessories. We could go on for ages for this one, but we're going to concentrate on the Kamado grill itself. Monolith do a charcoal themselves. We at Marlow Stoves work with a company called Whittle and Flame. We're based up in Oxfordshire. Carbon neutral, again, loads of detail in there. Fantastic group of guys, work really, really hard to create some amazing, most important thing you need to know about it, single species charcoal. So every lump of wood in here is oak, and it's from batch 1000, so they can tell you exactly where they got that oak from. The reason they do it is that all the different woods burn at slightly different temperatures. So if you've got a bag of mixed wood, you're going to have different areas of the firebox kind of hitting different temperatures at different times depending on how that fire moves. But we know now if we're just going to use, for instance today, oak, we know that that's going to be a consistent heat throughout as the fire moves through the fuel. The thing is with Kamados is we don't light all the charcoal at the same time. Can do if you want, but an awful lot of the cooks, especially the low and slows, we tend to light one certain area of it, and then that fire will move naturally throughout the rest of the fuel, depending on the amount of air that we're giving into it, hence why very efficient use of fuel, and also really controllable temperatures. Again, more sort of details about how the Kamado works and why it works is you'll get to know the more you get to use it, really. But the idea here is to get the fire going. In the first instance, get the heat into the ceramics, get them saturated in heat, and then which will probably take about 45 minutes, once we're up to temperature, we'll then look to set in the temperature that we're going to cook at, and then we're able to kind of get going. So I'll sort of talk you through a little bit of lighting the Monolith, because it's so efficient. You don't have to kind of skimp on the charcoal. You can put a good amount in. I'm not a massive fan of shaking charcoal into a Kamado because you get an awful lot of the dust as well. I would much rather pick through it by hand, getting the lumps out, and you can even place it into position so you know that you've got plenty of airflow around and the way it's going to work. There is a bit coming up though, which I'm going to handle a piece of steak, so I'm trying to keep as clean as possible, even though it's not for public consumption, but trying to show good habits. So just sort of make sure that's evenly spread. Find a little hole. Probably start the fire towards the front is quite nice, because obviously that's where the air is coming through. The fire will then move towards the rear naturally. The rear tends to be the hottest point as well after a certain time. So things like when you're using a rotisserie or something like that, just be aware that your fire is probably towards the back of the Kamado, where it should be for that kind of thing. We're going to use some natural lighters. So this is just wax and wood shavings that we sell in the shop. See if we can get those lit. They go up quite easily. Already got some heat coming off that. Now, to get everything going, we are going to leave the lid open. We'll have the bottom vent open as well, just to get the air in going as well, because again, whenever you're starting a fire, and we always say this with the log burners, solid fuel burners as well, is that you want to, it's the most inefficient time, so you want to get as much air to it as possible, as if it's an open fire, bonfire. Really get the sort of the fuel going, get the fire going, and then once that's embedded, then you've got a decent chance of then shutting down the air and controlling the burn and the temperatures. So we'll leave that. As I said, this will take about an hour to get up to temperature. So what we're going to use that for is we're going to put a rub on the steak, which needs an hour to sit in before it's cooked. So managing my time. This is a rub from the Rusty Barbecue Company. It's the original core powder, which is a sweet heat rub and seasoning. I've gone for a heat because we're going to be getting some smoke contact here. I'm going to be using some smoke pellets. Not necessarily everyone's cup of tea with a piece of fillet, but we want to kind of show off what the barbecue can do. So to counter some of the smoke contact, I want to make sure there's a bit of heat in there and a bit of sweetness as well, just so you kind of get that nice balance. Now, while these rubs cost quite a lot of money, I also feel you need to put loads on just to make sure that you've got. So this is a slightly sort of wet piece of meat. I've not dried it out or anything. I've not put any salt in it. Don't put any salt in anything like a piece of meat, as far as that, will just suck all the moisture out. Put it in fat by all means and start getting some lovely crackling, but you don't really want to leave your steak sitting in salt for too long. Let's do that. Get it all around the edges. There we go. And then that will hopefully just take on some of those flavours for an hour while the Monolith Junior comes up to temperature. And what you'll find in our next video is that I'll use the Meter Plus, which is a remote thermometer to just monitor the inside of the temperature. We're going to set this to quite a low temperature to start off with. It's going to sort of reverse sear it. So we'll bring the meat up to the internal temperature we want, and then we'll get the grid nice and hot, and then do a sear on the outside for that lovely sort of charred flavour. And I think that's it for that. I can't think I haven't covered anything else. So thank you very much for watching. As I said in the previous video, but just in case you're joining us in this one, you can always find us at the showroom. We've got a showroom in Marlow Bottom. We specialise in Monolith Kamados. They are the best you can get now. They're the most adaptable, certainly from accessories wise, certainly higher quality. Got lovely little touches we can all go through. We also work with various other ranges of either Gosney and Traeger as well. And we always love a good conversation and a chat about outdoor living, outdoor cooking. Talked about outdoor kitchens, gas barbecues, if you want fridges, sinks, the full package. We also do that too. But generally we like to talk an awful lot about cooking meats and drinking a beer from the brewery down the road. So join us at the showroom, give us a call with any queries you've got, and thank you very much for logging in and watching another one of our videos.